Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Indieheads Podcast. I'm your host, Matty, at Monovian Prince on Twitter. On this episode of the podcast, we have...
Hello, this is Jackson, at horse_jeans on twitter.com, coming to you live from Los Angeles. Hello, how's it going?
Hello, it's me. I'm Britt, at Suppy Russ on Twitter. I'm here, and I have a piece of paper that now says that I'm a fully fledged educated adult.
Ooh,
I'm
yeah.
free. I'm free. Sort of.
I'm Dylan. My Twitter is also at Monrovian Prince. It's actually Slime Feast. That's the first time I've ever mentioned my online.
You finally did it. The bit's over. The bit
I know. It's ended.
And I'm Gavin, and in case you missed the Indieheads Podcast pre-show, I just won Music Video Director of the Year, so congrats to me at Fornano Freak.
Congratulations, Music Video of the Year for Roswell Kid.
Boomerang.
There you go. Congratulations,
yeah.
Gavin.
Thank you.
That is the first winner of the night of our 4th annual Podcast Awards. It is the end of the year, and of course, end of the year we like to reflect on the year that was, and of course that means it's time to put on the jester hat. Of course, we are the court jesters of medieval times, and we be fucking hey, and here we are to do our 4th annual Podcast Awards. And of course,
it's the Todd and Aaron Video Game Awards of music.
Todd and Aaron here. Jesus Christ. We're the second best year in awards show after Todd and Aaron, of course, and then in third place is I don't know, probably like On Cinema. Do they do a year? I don't fucking know. I don't watch Tim and Aaron. Anyways, hello. We're gonna do some podcast awards, and of course, we start off the podcast awards every year with this award, and of course, we are talking about our meme of the year, and the nominees are Gritty, Rock and Roll Music with Guitars, Japan Droids Beer, /U/Art36, and Grimes and Elon Musk. And before we pick the winner, let's go over all these nominees very briefly and talk about why they're on why they have made the cut to be featured in the meme of the year category. Of course, previous winners include Currents by Tame Impala and what was last year's? I actually forget. My brain.
Oh my god.
My brain has been through a lot since.
No, yeah, I was about to say, like, please remember more than one of these, because I couldn't come up with any. What was it last year? I
really.
In all honesty, it probably was Currents again.
It might have been. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna go through my Google Docs and figure out which one it was. But anyways, of course, the first one you mentioned was Gritty. And Gritty is sort of the crowd favorite. It's more of just like an obvious choice. It's not really podcast specific, but it is adjacent to our Twitter circles. And that Gritty, of course, is an Antifa legend, and he must be featured on this because of it. And again,
He's making the chuds mad online.
Exactly.
Because there was that Atlantic article that was really mad that people were using Antifa Photoshop on Gritty, and it just spiraled out of control from there. So it's the popular vote.
The Photoshop of Gritty on the parade float with all the children that they Photoshop with the Antifa flag is just it's a beautiful piece of art.
Okay.
There's a very good Twitter account called Fellow Worker Gritty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because he just kind of escalates into just this pro-worker, pro-labor nightmare.
There's also a video of Gritty being sent to the penalty box during a Flyers game and just absolutely destroying everything.
We stand.
There was a really great
child.
a child decked Gritty on the hockey court, knocked him over, and then he picked the child up and put him in the penalty box. It was really great.
Oh, okay. I'm just now remembering what our meme of the year last year was, because there was no winner. It was Nothing is Funny in 2017. There is no joy. It is all gone.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
This is the year that we could smile again. All right. This is
no, not even a little bit, dude. Come on.
I have one more Gritty comment, actually, now that I think about it. There was an interview with him about him talking right before Thanksgiving, and they're like, "What's your favorite Thanksgiving food, Gritty?" And he says, "I like to drink gravy with a straw." And they said, well, what else are you excited about? And they're like, and he says, gravy with a straw.
He's such a freak.
Forcefully.
What a freak bitch Gritty is. Anyways, on to nominee number 2, which was rock and roll music with guitars.
Aw, baby.
Which, Gavin's wheelhouse.
Yes, baby.
Yeah.
This is not a meme. This is 24 hours, 7 days a week, all day, every day. Rock and roll music in my ears, out my mouth, in my heart, my cheeks, my ass. You know, it's everywhere. It's all around me, but it's a meme to most people.
Yes.
This was the year that rockism and rocktimism turned into sort of a meme where we would just constantly declare that we liked rock and roll music with guitars. But really also this belongs here because rock and roll music with guitars do be hidden this year. Like a lot of my favorite albums this year, still rock albums with guitar music. It's still good, folks.
Folks, it's good.
I'd say...
Yeah, you see that Billboard list of the top rock songs of the year, baby? It's good.
God.
Good stuff.
All right. Oh yeah, we won't. We're not going to discuss that. No, this is supposed to be a very positive nominee,
You're right.
Gavin, and
You're right.
I do not want you ruining it.
Positive rock.
And we must explain the origins of rock and roll music with guitars.
Yes.
I'm gonna. He's the enemy of the podcast to me, just because he doesn't. I don't think he likes me still, but nevertheless, our good friend and my personal enemy, Seagal Train, who in some thread, in some dumbass Indieheads thread, where people once again are arguing, "Oh, this is indie, this isn't indie," just replying to like every comment, "I only like rock and roll music with guitars," like he's fucking Bart Simpson in the Simpsons intro.
But it had that Reddit. It had that Reddit glitch where like the comment goes like 5 different times.
Again, so I only like rock and roll music guitars, which again is our second nominee for meme of the year, and of course the third nominee, and one that is very near and dear to our hearts, Japan Droids beer, the Goose Island Japan Droids, the hops that heaven built beer collaboration, which we all for pretty much since the moment it was announced, we are all heavily anticipating when a number of us arrived at the Pitchfork Music Festival this year, is what we were salivating for. It was what was keeping us alive. It wasn't the fact that we were going to see Japan Droids together.
And the wildest thing about it was that even though we had built this up for just no reason and unnecessarily hyped what would just be beer at a festival, it somehow exceeded our impossibly too high expectations and was one of the better beers I've ever had, and I crushed like 8 of them. It was incredible.
In a row?
I had like 4 the first day, like 4 the second day, or like 5, a lot of beers, many beer. And they were, I mean, it said on the can they were like infinitely crushable, and boy is that correct. It was just a wonderful time at the Pitchfork Music Festival, in large part thanks to the delicious nectar of the gods that is Japan Droids beer, and inspired just like about a month of my tweets, like for just a good while there. It was all I thought, all I dreamed. All I was, it was Japan Droids beer, top to bottom.
AJ was basically trashed that whole
weekend yes.
Japan Droids beer, and there's some very good pictures of him. I think from the Japan Droids show, at least, where he's like
it was after the show where we're all. It was like
into the camera. And...
It was me, Jeremiah, AJ, and I can't remember who the 4th person was. Maybe Jackson. I don't think it was.
I wasn't. It wasn't.
Oh yeah, you weren't there on Sunday, so you weren't there on Sunday.
We were at.
Yeah, you were at Radiohead. Who?
Corinne, maybe?
I don't think it was Corinne. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, AJ was trashed. Of course, before Japan... No, Saturday was War on Drugs. Of course, AJ, which did not make the cut of Meme of the Year, was AJ's dad moves during the War on Drugs set, which I filmed. Which, again...
Well, there's another very good video, too, of him dancing like right before the Japan Droids set that I caught. I was very proud of that one too.
God. Anyways, Japan Droids beer.
A good time.
Also, my single favorite tweet from all of the Chicago weekend came on Saturday at 2:49 p.m. in which I tweeted, "I have not had a sip of water in 5 hours. Japan Droids beer is coursing through my veins." Which was really that was like I think about 30 minutes before I then got an entire plate of vegan chicken fingers and sat down at Big Thief for like an hour and drank 3 waters. so that's where we were at that point in the Pitchfork Music Festival. Shout out to Android's beer.
God. All right. Nominee number 4, and one that might be new to some of the listeners of the podcast, but those who are in our circles and within the Indieheads podcast canon, a new entry. The Click is Reddit user Art36, who has just been a joy in the worst possible way to watch this year. If you don't know, he is a very regular user of Indieheads, and if he is listening, sorry. But anyways,
we're not actually.
Sorry,
we're kind of not.
We're kind of not. Anyways, Art36, who is a strange user, again, who is someone that he represents the rock and roll music with guitars mindset, but in the worst possible light. He is the dark side to the light. If Seagal Train is the light side of rock and roll music with guitars, then Art36 is the left side. Here's Art36, who is a self-proclaimed champion of women and LGBT artists and black and minorities in general, people of color. He is a self-proclaimed champion, and he is also a regular poster in r/conservative. I'm going to look at his activism communities post right now. He is very active in, of course, Indieheads is his top 1. Number 2 is male fashion advice. Number 3 is baseball. Number three is baseball. Number 4 is r/conservative, and then number 5 is NFL circle jerk. And then also investing and Westworld is in there too. So
incredible.
Weird.
You could convince me that this is a Will for Thrill shit posting account very easily.
Oh, 100%.
We wish it was. We wish it was.
Art36 just sounds like evil Will for Thrill.
Yeah, he sounds like something Will for Thrill would create as one of his like Twitter bits.
Like Shadow the Hedgehog. Basically.
Yes.
The Doodle Bob to Will for Thrill SpongeBob.
God. And we also must discuss that Art36 is a very he is said many times, I used to work at a music venue or something of that sort, somewhere in the music industry. It keeps changing each time. Either it keeps changing or I just simply cannot remember where he works in the industry. And also, of course, he is a huge Killers and 1975 stan. It's sort of like it's like if Jeremiah went down the wrong path, sometimes I think with R36. And I don't mean this as an insult to Jeremiah. Of course, we love Jeremiah. That's why I say if Jeremiah went down the wrong path, because Jeremiah is our blessed boy and we dearly, dearly love him. We miss him, even though...
The Killers do rule. The Killers are good. And many dear friends of mine who I respect very much like the 1975, despite how I feel about that.
I know I sent you the tweet, again, 1975... Again, what if, I concur that most relationships happen online nowadays, and then your boyfriend, this is a profound work of art.
Wait a minute, guys.
What was the... My favorite
Yes, Gavin. Yes, Gavin.
Was... Go ahead.
Sorry, Gavin.
I've just got a huge galaxy brain take here. I hope you're prepared for it.
Oh, boy.
Art36. As you know, ART spells art. And if you take 36 and apply it to the alphabet, V is the 36th letter of the alphabet. He is ARTV, and that's all I have to say about this.
Oh, okay. We need to, we will discuss this after the podcast, because
my personal favorite
is a bombshell. It's a bombshell that we do not have. We need time to process that, and we will have a podcast awards after show where we discuss this theory in depth. But Jackson, continue. Jackson, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that my favorite one of those 1975 tweets was about how every single review of the album is like, this is the worst shit I've ever heard. I can't get enough of it. It speaks so much to the moment. Like it was something to that effect. It was that like every single review is like, this is the most obnoxious bullshit, and I love it so much. Which I understand as a fan of Mark Kozilek. Anyways, moving on.
Anyways, and our last nominee for Meme of the Year is Grimes / Elon Musk, the will they won't they indie couple of 2018. And
Ugh.
This is on here because even though I despise that it exists, it deserves to be nominated because even though we all had to just deal with this in our lives, we made the best out of it and we tried to have a good time with it and make some good jokes. And we did make a lot of good jokes about this, I think, including one on this podcast, which is the reason why this is really nominated for Meme of the Year, because we opened one of our podcasts this year by reading a filthy fan fiction about Elon Musk and his
big
orbs.
blue orbs. His big blue orbs.
Who did that read? Was it Lily that did it?
It was me and Lily. We went back and forth on the read.
Yeah, that's right. We did a dramatic act out. It was incredible.
I remember Matty was like, we need to find a way to do this cold open, and then I just went and I searched up Elon Musk fan fiction, and that was the first thing that popped up. So we just kind of rolled with it.
Hero of the podcast, Dylan, and probably again it is the sole reason why this is on here because of your contributions to this podcast. So really, again, the true again, if we did not have this as an award, but when it comes to the Indieheads Podcast Achievement Award of 2018, Dill is the winner of that. But now we must reveal the winner of Meme of the Year, and of course, it's obvious. You know what it is. It's rock and roll music with guitars, baby. Hell yeah. Let's get it.
It
rock
is
music with
indeed
guitars.
rock and roll music with guitars.
And this has been a year that and like I said, it's something that started off as, like I said, it started off as like as an ironic thing, and then just like as I'm doing my year-end list, I'm like, oops, like this might not be, this kind of is.
It's fun because it was a bit, but also a sincere appeal to, hey, rock and roll music and guitars, it's good, listen to it.
Like I think, like I said, you could probably describe that for about more than half of my like top 10 of the year as rock and roll music with guitars. But anyways, right. Yes.
Let's move on to the next award because this is a good one that we've slightly redesigned since last year.
Yes. Jackson, I'll let you continue with this.
Okay. So we used to do an award every year called the Head Ass of the Year, which is more or less what this is. I mean, the thing is if we still use the terminology head ass, every year it would really be Dave Longstreth. It would never not be Dave Longstreth. But we've decided to rename the award and slightly reclassify it. And this is now called the Golden Wedgie Award. And this is to the person or corporation or entity that we believe is most deserving of the Golden Wedgie. And we have some great nominees this year, and I'm gonna get started. The first nominee for the Golden Wedgie Award is Drake. Drake is the first nominee for the Golden Wedgie Award for many reasons. This whole it's hard to call this a feud with Kanye West because Kanye West is doing a lot of old man yelling at cloud.
Should we just also say the second nominee too, since we already brought...
I think Kanye West being nominated is something that anyone listening to this podcast probably would have placed about $1 million on. Like, yes, Kanye West is one of the nominees for the Golden Wedgie Award. We will discuss his particular infractions in detail, but Drake had a weird 2018, I would say, partly because of the whole Pusha T beef he was embroiled in over the summer and the rollout of Scorpion, which is a monstrosity of a streaming vehicle that contains a few good tracks, and he was ever present in 2018, but I would say his coverage was less universally positive than usual, in large part due to a number of gaffes of his, such as hiding a child, and also dating a child.
and then having a close and having another close relationship with a child that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's been a weird one. For our bud from Canada, and that's why he's a Golden Wedgie Award nominee, and also because he insists that I have to listen to 24 track albums that last for 5 eternities in order to pick out the 3 good songs I'm gonna hear at every party I go to for the next 4 months.
Truly, his worst crime is the album. It's truly the worst crime of his.
It's just frustrating because it's like he's definitely one of the most talented pop artists we have, and also I couldn't be more like sick of him. And
sicko mode of him.
Oh my god.
Oh, we'll get there. Moving on to the other half of this really one-sided beef, the container of most of the beef, Kanye West. Kanye West, he's mad online. His never stop posting mentality reached new levels of never stop posting in 2018, and has made my relationship with him very, very, it's complicated.
I remember.
And that's only like what's happened in like the past like 3 or 4 days. This again.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot to discuss with Kanye West.
When you think about where Kanye West was at the beginning of this year, it literally feels like lifetimes ago. We've gone through like multiple full backlash cycles, 4 album rollouts. The tipping point of the Kanye MAGA stuff, including the posting of him wearing the hat on Twitter with like those venture capitalist dudes, which was like really, really, really dark, and probably the bottom that we reached with the Kanye stuff this year. And then he found further bottoms down the road to reach. It's just really messy, and I just really I would like that guy to be okay.
Okay, Jackson, but sorry to interrupt, Britt, but why is Kids See Ghosts not on your album of the year list? Why is it not on this list anywhere? They're having a Kanye West boycott. All of these publications, all right, just like Kanye said, they bully me. Bully me. I can't even say it without like wanting to give Kanye a wedgie right now.
It's so annoying because like, okay, I will admit that like I think Kids See Ghost is a good album and probably should be like not number 1. It should be like 42 on your album of the year list or whatever. But it's like a very good album that I like a fair bit. But the thing is that people that like whine for people like Kanye West to be included in an album. He's Kanye West. Like he'll be. You don't need to go online and defend Kanye West in his album sales, because we all, as I have certainly guilty of, like this is 100% the pot calling the kettle black. Make no mistake, I was the most obnoxious Kanye kid for the longest time, and I really do feel like going through a lot of the stuff that we've gone through, Kanye has helped me realize how kind of toxic my celebrity worship was and how bad that is as a practice. And it's just been a really good year for realizing, oh yeah, people can make good art and still be just unfathomably dumb. Just so the levels of like, think of all of the dumb takes Kanye's had this year. Like we can't even like process like the fact that he went on TMZ and said like slavery was a choice. Because we've had like 15 things happen worse than, not even worse than that, but like, you know what I mean? Like it never ends this year with Kanye. I was so happy that he rolled back Yandi, because even though it hasn't actually given us a break from Kanye, because Kanye is now wilding out more than ever, at least like we didn't have to go through another. I don't think I would have been able to take another Kanye album cycle, because at this point, he just lashes out for attention now. Like it's worse. He's always done that, but like it felt productive or interesting then, and it's not interesting to me anymore. It just kind of makes me sad. And
there was something that he tweeted during like the whole Drake shitstorm last week that was like, I've been off my meds for 6 months. It's fucking bullshit. And I'm like sitting here losing my mind.
Oh yeah, he specifically said, I can't make MBT, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy level music on meds, which is like a very harmful thing to say, because it perpetuates the stereotype that creatives can't do their best work when they're on mental health medications, which just isn't true. It does sometimes make it more difficult, but like taking your medication is more important, and you can learn how to be creative while on your medications. Go seek professional help for mental health issues. Don't just say bullshit like drink water and eat more snacks and get 8 hours of sleep a night. Get professional help if you can, and if you can't afford it, that's bullshit, and we should change the healthcare system. Anyways, moving on.
Yes, we need to move on. We'll go to Justin Timberlake, who
Yes.
I would say I will say just barely edged his way onto this list, and compared to the other nominees, is probably the least harmful. I would say, like, he's the least harmful. But just
I mean, but he's deserving of the wedgie, and the like, not like, oh, this person. The next two that we're gonna talk about are not necessarily like this person is really like problematic or harmful per se. Like these nominees aren't like the most problematic. It's more like, come on, dude, did you really think you could put out a song called Flannel and have it sound like that and just think that's okay? Like, are you I still haven't recovered from hearing Supply's the Doomsday Prepper fuck anthem. Like, oh my god. It was
How many times Lily listened to that album?
She listened
20
to it once
times. 20 times.
20
Jesus
times.
Christ. Pour one out for her.
Yeah, I really think that must have. I think we'll eventually learn that just broke something in Lily, and when Lily snaps in a few years, we'll be like, it was that damn Man of the Woods album that just changed something forever.
God, it's more of a Golden Wedgie, just more of just like, we're better than this. Like, give JT the wedgie. You know, kick him in the butt, you know, have him go run 4 and he'll run off and he'll go back to his mom, and then, you know, again, his mom will, you know, he'll learn his lesson, then hopefully he'll be back and he'll be good again and we can appreciate him, because it's just weird to live in an era where it's like, man, JT kind of sucks, right? Like, it's not fun. As I love Justin Timberlake as a kid, man, you know, Sexy Back is a great song, and then, you know, 2020 Experience Part 1, that's a great album. You know, again, again, it's more of a Golden Wedgie. You're better than this. Come on, man. Come on. But not much else to say, really.
It's just rare, like, in the era of albums that are, like, so aggressively, like, focus grouped and conceived of to be as bland and kind of appealing as possible. It's rare that you get an album that's like so obviously just like completely out of step with anything remotely.
Yeah, exactly.
And just the levels of just sort of like clear
miscalculation.
Miscalculations left and right to like staggering degrees. It was really not a good album in any way. There are a couple of like okay songs on it, but not enough to warrant Flannel and other such.
Yes.
What were like the worst songs on the album? What would we say?
Here's the thing. That's why I debated having him off this, just because it's like, I remember not liking the album, but I can't remember like if I listen to it again, of course, everything would it's like traumatic. It's like I've repressed this album. I've repressed it. I've repressed the badness of this album.
It's a similar sort of thing.
Like it just comes up as like a huge miscalculation. It's one of those things of like, I think Stephen Hyden said it pretty appropriately in that, I think, the Noisy article, where basically said that like right now people are like, oh, this is just like an average album, but like when we look back at 2018, we'll go back to this album and be like, wow, this album really came out. Like, this really got like a lot of people had to sign off on this album, and it somehow
just like
came through.
Kind of in the same way that like when a classic album comes out, it's hard to call it a classic album because you can't tell if it's just recency bias. So like when a classic album comes out, it kind of gets undervalued because people are hesitant to lift something up to that level so quickly after like a couple listens. It's a similar sort of effect with this album. It's like it can't be as bad as you think it is, so you just sort of like listen to it once and then forget about it and don't really fully take in how truly special its awfulness is. And that is why Justin Timberlake is a Golden Wedgie Award nominee for making easily his worst album.
Yes. And then speaking of similar miscalculations of some sorts, our next nominee is Hobo Johnson, everyone's favorite, again, somehow dirtier Post Malone. Post Malone,
Yeah.
if Post Malone somehow found even more musk to put on himself.
We all owe the Front Bottoms an apology tonight. Like, we thought like it couldn't go any lower, but like they're fine compared to this like incel core folk music / Post Malone wannabe ?
It's more like, I mean, I heard like Law Dispute a lot, but I've never listened to Law Dispute, so I can't really.
It's Law Dispute for incels.
Yes, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
I trust Gavin, but like,
Yeah.
Hobo Johnson, like, I've made tweets about it, and I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but like, it's still the same story of like, my body physically rejects it. My body goes legitimately into fight or flight response when I listen to Hobo Johnson. My body goes, if you listen to like 2 more seconds of this, like, you are going to have a panic attack of some sort because you cannot handle this. Like, I wish I was kidding.
It's really grating in the way that like most quote unquote bad music like isn't. Like most music that we call bad is just like, whatever, I don't get this. I don't like this like other people do. This really does inspire like the kind of revulsion that's special, you know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And this is like the year that I think he belongs on the list this year, because like this was the year that like he got that NPR Tiny Desk concert, and then all of a sudden it felt like people outside of the indie circles who had the delight and the pleasure of not having heard Hobo Johnson. There were a lot of people this year who finally gave in and were like, okay, I guess I'm gonna listen to something called Hobo Johnson, and were sorely disappointed and regretful of that choice.
The only way it was like a shitty feedback loop, because the only reason why I listened to Hobo Johnson was because everybody was talking about how trash he was, and so I had no clue, and I went to the NPR Tiny Desk and I watched like 15 seconds of it, and I was like, I'm good for the rest of my life without hearing this.
Like,
I remember I listened to it for the first time for the Take or Treat episode where we talked about Hobo Johnson, and I'm like, and I remember I just thought, this is not good. It's very bad white boy rap, and I had never heard about Hobo Johnson until that Take or Treat episode, and then I because I kind of once again forgot about it until this episode.
yeah, like
He popped up on the wedgie of the year.
The thing about spoken word is that spoken word isn't like a bad medium. It's just that it has this ability to attract the worst people in the world to think that they're good at it. And that's why much
it is a lot of
poetry
white people too.
Exactly, yeah. Like when you listen to like Gil Scott Heron, you're like, this is the best, man, and then Hobo Johnson's like, this was a mistake. We need to go back.
like that Simpsons episode where Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on rakes. That's what Hobo Johnson is doing musically. He's like, oh, spoken word about not getting laid, step. Emo folk music, step. It's like all of the worst possible combinations you could put in an artist
It's like
with the same haircut as Sideshow Bob.
It's like someone listened to an American football album one time, watched like 2 hours of bad spoken word on YouTube about like realize, and then was like, you know what? I'm gonna put these two together.
Like even the parody, even which again, the Left at London Hobo Johnson parody that came out, like even that was hard to watch, even though it's actually good. Yeah. Like, that was, for those of you who haven't seen it, definitely, first of all, if you're not following Left at London, like, what are you doing? At Left on London on Twitter. But she had this really great video where she imitated Hobo Johnson, but did the lyrics to that I
travel
Love
band.
Friday.
The I Love Friday.
It was Mia Khalifa, but again, I Love Friday. Who again? I don't know. Again, like I said, threw them on a different category, but we probably won't talk about them. We must give a very brief shout out to I Love Friday.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Who is wonderful.
For those of you who aren't familiar, you certainly heard the hit or miss. I bet it doesn't miss, which is the song that Left at London does in the Hobo Johnson style. But
the Travel Band song might be better than that one. It might be better.
But the Travel Band song was the first. I heard that one first before the hit or miss thing got really popular.
I know because you sent that to Big Business, and I was just cracking up so hard.
They're both really good. Well, the thing is that they're like a duo. It's like some guy and
Trippie Redd ripoff.
It's a dude who does a really bad Trippie Redd imitation, and I don't even like Trippie Redd as is, so he's just like actually unlistenable. But then the other half of this dynamic hip hop duo is like an 18-year-old Pakistani girl who is low key like one of my new favorite rappers. Like she's so fucking funny, and both the Travel Band song and the Mia Khalifa disc are hysterical, and those verses are legitimately good, and she does not belong on the Golden Wedgie Award list.
No, wonderful, she's wonderful, but she might show up on a different
except that she's a non-black person saying the N-word in her songs, which is not good.
Which is Wedgie worthy, but again compared to our next nominee. Nominee.
Okay. So this one we're not even like. There are so many things we could get into with this person.
I think we should keep it to one thing. And it's debating on which that thing should be because it's just.
I know, Matty.
Okay, all right, Jackson. I trust you.
I need to take the reins here because he's had a really terrible year, doing lots of bad stuff and generally being harmful to the planet. But I think that this story captures the specific weird terribleness of Jack Dorsey, Twitter's CEO. Today, we learned that in 2016, Jack Dorsey was nervous because ISIS had made a video threatening him on the internet, and he needed protection from ISIS. So who does he seek out? Of course, Azalea Banks is who he seeks out.
And like the natural, like the first
DMs Azalea Banks a bunch of times, offers to promote Azalea Banks' album in exchange for Azalea Banks making an amulet out of Jack Dorsey's beard hair. And he trimmed some of his beard hair and sent it to Azalea Banks and said, Azalea Banks, please make me an amulet to protect me from ISIS. This is a real story. This all happened. And that really just tells you everything you need to know about Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO.
And like I said, yep, not much else to say. Not much else to say.
That's pretty.
And you might have thought right now, wait, they just said 5 nominees, so that's it, right? Those are your nominees. No, our final nominee and the winner of the Golden Wedgie Award for the Indieheads Podcast Awards is Airbnb, the Air and bastards, everyone. The motherfuckers. So of course, we discussed this in length in our IRL podcast this year from Chicago.
We don't need to get into it.
We will not get into it too deep.
For those of you not familiar, the short story long story short is Airbnb basically canceled on us the day that we all showed up in Chicago expecting to have a place with enough room for 10 people in it. And it extremely not only didn't have room for all of us, but also would not let us stay there and was apparently canceled the night before for reasons that we get into in the podcast. And basically we had to scramble to get a new Airbnb that was much too small to host all of us. And we did so through AJ Moser, who was getting on a plane still and wasn't even in Chicago and was definitely drunk and was like on the phone with multiple representatives on the plane as the plane was taking off. It was quite a saga. We get into it in this year's live podcast that was recorded at exactly Modelo o'clock and is a little more lively than the description I'm giving right now. And it's also the podcast is a little unlistenable. Like you can't really hear us talk.
No, it was a Periscope.
It's great. It was a Periscope, and it was a great time. And I do recommend listening to it for that story. But yeah, Airbnb is terrible, and they're also just like a bad company, like top to bottom. It's really not good.
Exactly. So, congratulations, Airbnb, on winning our first ever Golden Wedgie Award.
A prestigious honor, to be sure.
Hooray!
All right, now we will get into again getting some more lighthearted awards before we get into the stuff, the bread and butter of this podcast. We are now going to get into another new category, and that, of course, is the Bully of the Year. Of course, 2018 was a year filled with a lot of bullies, and we are going to discuss our favorite bullies. Again, the good and the bad bullies of
These aren't the bullies that
2018.
you really want to stop, kids.
Exactly. And of course, our first nominee, and one that many people would consider the biggest bully of the year. But of course, this is the Indieheads podcast. We do have to keep it personal at the end of the day. But our first nominee is Pusha T and Jackson.
Yes.
Jackson, you know this better than
Yes.
I think anybody, I would say.
I would
At least in this current cast.
Pusha T, yeah. For those of you under rock, we also covered this in detail on an episode of the podcast that I was on. Pusha T, to reiterate, made a song in which one of the lyrics was "You are hiding a child." It was like the most incredible reaction I've ever had to a diss track, for sure. Like it was a level of yo, I can't believe he's like going in like this, like the kind of diss rap where you really almost don't feel okay enjoying it, but you also love every second of it, and it just crossed the line over and over again, but like in a way that you just like, it's so audacious you can't even get mad at it. Like when he gets to the part where he says tick tick tick, that boy is 666, and you're just like, oh my god, like
Your friend is dying. Again, Drake, your best friend is dying. Ha ha ha. The most bully shit of the year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If there was anyone that deserved to hear that, it was probably Drake. Drake went, for the most part, L-less for way too long, or at least L's with consequences. I will say L's with, because he had taken L's, exactly, but nothing that stuck around for very long. At most, it stuck around for a day, but did not affect it overall.
It was pretty wild, and that whole 24-hour sort of cycle after the story of Added On was one of my favorite. One of the better times to be online this year. So shouts out to the story of Added On and Pusha T.
And then a late development to the story of Added On was, again, people were like, well, who's your inside source? Like, how'd you get the info? Of course, everyone assumed it was Kanye at first. Kanye denied it, and even Pusha T was like, yeah, it wasn't Kanye. But you know who it was? It was some girl that 40 was seeing. It was one of 40's side hoes that was the God, I can't say what's the word that Edward Snowden was? The whistleblower was the whistleblower for Pusha T.
That's incredible.
Very incredible information. So again,
what we learned this year is that Pusha T still really good at rapping, and also Pusha T a messy bitch who lives for drama. And we love Pusha T here on this podcast, and we would like to shout him out as a nominee for Bully.
And also, please don't bully us, Pusha T. Please don't bully us.
Do not.
Especially me.
I would crack under the pressure right away.
Especially me.
Pusha T is the Nardwuar of like incredible rap disses this year, so I don't mess with him.
Exactly. Who wants to say that? Who wants to say the next one?
The Indieheads podcast to Matty.
I was gonna say it because I feel like I'm the one who engages in this the most. I am Matty's worst torment.
I do it a lot, but I do it a lot with Twitter. So
I do it.
Jackson gets me from all corners. He gets me from all corners. He gets me in my Twitter DMs. He gets me on the podcast chat. He gets me on my iMessage, and then I probably IRL at some point. He probably said something subliminally, and I missed it because I'm an idiot while we were in Chicago.
It's like that one video with the two guys who are just aggressively flipping each other off.
That's
Jackson and Matty right there.
Exactly. I want everyone to. I said it on Twitter. Like what every once in a while when I'm bored, I'll just like pick something that Matty really likes. That's like a specific niche thing to Matty. And be like, yo, that thing fucking sucks, and it works every time. Like Matty's brain is weak and feeble, and I can manipulate him to get mad online. Yeah. But
For me, it's much
the thing
more like
is that
situational. Like it's much for me. It's I take the Seinfeld route where I just see Matty doing some weird shit, and I'm just like, Matty, that's some weird shit, and he gets so upset. Like last night, I pointed out on Twitter how he keeps his records in his closet on the top shelf, which one is just horrendously dangerous, and just set off like a ton of red flags for me as like a record collector, which was like that isn't it, Chief, and he just comes at me with this like 30-second long video.
It was 20 seconds. It was 20 seconds, dude.
20 seconds, which is just like.
And I was drunk. All right, I was drunk. I had an orange cider at a bar, and then I had two Modelo's, And I was and my girlfriend and I were watching Jeopardy, and you're bullying me online. And Dylan, because of you, I literally put on my Christmas list 2 shelves so I can put my records in.
I was like, just get some fucking milk crates or something.
I had milk crates when I lived in Chicago. When I lived in Chicago, Dill, I had 2 milk crates, but I ordered the wrong size milk crates, so they weren't like over 12 inches. So like I had to put them like slanted, like diagonally. These 2 milk crates that I had because I ordered the wrong ones because I didn't know where to find any milk crates for cheap because all the ones on Amazon were fucking expensive.
Folks, I think we're just proving our point here. So let's move on to the next one.
Actually, no. What I was gonna say, I was gonna say that the reason why the Indieheads podcast to Matty is one of the bullies of the year is because we love Matty very much and we love to give him shit.
We love our boy,
and he's our sweet son. Yeah. It's just sometimes we need to shove him in a locker every once in a while, you know?
He's very easily dunkable. I will give him that.
Britt!
I've been far nicer than everyone else
Friendship ended with Indieheads podcast. Now boy time is my new best friend.
Hell yeah. Boy time coming soon. Probably.
Other bully of the year candidates though, and this is a really good one. Vince Staples is better at talking shit on the internet than anyone who's ever done the activity. He's really just like every year just bangs out like 12 perfect tweets every year where he just says something absolutely ridiculous and completely and he's really good at just saying like mean stuff in very clever ways. Love that guy. Love Mr. Vince.
He released a single this year called "Get the Fuck Off of My Dick," or am I thinking of last year?
That came out this year. Like that was a loose single that was in between Big Fish Theory and FM.
There was some tweet that he made. I think it was like this week or last week that it dug up some like older tweet that he had made about like bullying some high school kids or something, and the person was like, do you really think this is okay or something, and Vince just snaps back and was like, yeah, fuck it, we'll do it all over again. Like he legitimately does not give a shit if he gets banned at all.
Like I said, again, the light of the never stop posting mentality is Vince Staples, because Vince Staples, he doesn't go crazy. Again, he will have that series of tweets for just one day, and then he'll disappear for a little bit, and then he'll come back with another series, and it's just a great cycle to witness every time.
He's very good at knowing when to not go Kanye, and does not have the never stop posting mentality. He will stop posting in order to correctly adjust the heat and allow him to constantly speak up when he does have something to say, such as when he took to Twitter to tweet that Meek Will went through hell and kept all his waves. Y'all don't understand the strength.
Oh god, my favorite Vince Staples Twitter moment of the year was when he was in a Celebrity Pro Fortnite tournament, and at this tournament said, "This Fortnite shit got me hot. We committed a real crime tonight."
Was his beef with Ronnie Radke this year,
yes.
Or was that last year?
Oh,
was that during this calendar year? Okay, because this is perfect. there was like I don't know how it started. I think it was like Vince Staples was saying something on Twitter, and like Ronnie Radke, the front man of what band was he from?
Some shitty metalcore band. Don't
Bring
worry.
Me the Horizon? No.
Yeah,
Bring Me the Horizon,
that
maybe,
is it. Yeah, that is it. Yeah, he was the front man of Bring Me the Horizon, who is like a known sex offender or like woman beater or abuser of some kind.
Yeah.
And basically, Ronnie Radke tweeted at Vince Staples, and Vince was like, "Hey, ain't you like hit a woman or something?" And just like completely called him out on it. And then
He called him Ronald.
what did he call him?
He called him Ronald.
He called him Ronald, and then he takes to Twitter with this video that I've posted before and will retweet for those of you who are looking for it. You can go find it, where he in the kitchen of his home while he's eating a burrito, he sends out this proclamation to the world about how he's gonna say what the fuck he wants. And then he proceeds to shout out Big Homie Gaga, which is Lady Gaga. He shouts out Oprah, and then he shouts out Morehouse College. And he is a treasure. He
boasts about making white people mad online. And
that was the first part of the video. He's like, we had a carne asada burrito. We making the white people mad all day. Shout out to Big Homie Gaga. Shout out Oprah. Shout out.
They're making Eggo waffles too. I'm pretty sure. Like he made a few times.
There's a lot happening.
It's a tour de force of about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And
Film of
in
the
general, yeah, Vince Staples' Film of the Year, one of the great internet posters of the year, and definitely a bully, but like in the good way.
But he he gives credit where credit is due. You know, like I said, for every bully tweet, or really for every 2 or 3 bully tweets, he will have one where there's he has shows a little humanity, shows a little humility, stuff like this. Like the Caucasians will also hit you with a tuna melt on a lukewarm day. We give credit where it's due on the Vince Staples show.
He also had my favorite Thanksgiving tweet, which was on the dead homies, fuck all pilgrims.
Okay, we need to move on. Dylan.
Exactly.
Dylan, our 5th nominee, or our 4th nominee.
Oh, yeah. All right. Our 5th nominee, is one that really set off a big discussion on, online. And it was Camp Cope earlier this year. The great, indie rock feminist trio who they talked a little bit. I think it was an interview. I don't remember if it was an interview or they just kind of went off on Twitter, just kind of complaining about how there was a lot of white cis men who just were kind of trashing on their album that and the album was a lot of very feminist themes of assault and identity and gender and sexuality and what have you. And they just kind of went to town on the absolute most oppressed people in our society today, in a blatant disregard for the many unfortunate situations that men have found themselves in this year. The straight white heterosexual male who is just very unfairly critiqued this year for reasons outside of their doing. So really, Camp Cope really deserves a bully this year just for being the absolute worst of the SJW culture destroying brain trust that the leftist media has pushed on us.
And while you're at it, promo code Indie for 50% off the Brain Force Indieheads pill that we're selling now.
Oh yeah, we sell brain supplements now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Camp Cope, they riled some of them white boys up as a white boy, but they put out a good record, and they're in the Vince Staples camp of good bullying. So,
It was like Big Black if it was racist towards men. That didn't even make sense, but I'm sticking to it.
Stick to your guns.
What's it called? Now let's talk about another category. That's actually.
Wait.
We still have our winner. We have our winner.
I forgot.
Breaking news.
Speaking of bullying white people, and by white people I mean specifically us, our bully of the year is the one and only Andrew Katz of Car Seat Headrest, who is our personal bully of the year. Now we've discussed, again, bullies more in a general sense. Of course, Pusha T to Drake and Associates, Vince Staples to just white people in general, or just ignorant white people, and then Camp Cope to the indie white bro types. But Andrew Katz is a specific bully to us as a whole. Now, of course, we could have gone Indieheads Podcast to me, but I am the host and I will not allow that. I'll allow you guys to bully me for about 5 minutes on this podcast. But in terms of bullying the entire podcast as a whole and riling us all up, Andrew Katz is truly the king of this shit. As, of course, before he was on the podcast, when he was on the podcast, and then after he was on the podcast, continued to bully us and was living rent-free inside our heads. And we appreciate it. Of course, again, as the saga goes, of course, we had asked him on Twitter to come to our podcast because we were all big fans of his social media, especially his Instagram. Very, very funny guy. And of course, he's like, all right, let's do the podcast right now. And we're like, wait, well, we have to set a date in advance. And it's like, all right. And then Will Toledo himself posted a video on the Car Seat Headrest Twitter of talking about us, indirectly about us inviting Andrew on the podcast. And Will and everyone else is like, well, you should probably do the podcast. And Andrew Katz is like, no, these fucking losers. Like, if you don't have a fucking microphone in your pocket, what are you going to do?
Really roasted us. And then proceeded to come on the podcast and just, we always thought that,
we knew we were unprofessional.
We always thought that we had Jeremiah and he was our most chaotic boy. But Andrew Katz, the thing is, Jeremiah is chaotic good and Andrew Katz is chaotic evil, and he just came into this podcast like a goddamn hurricane, and basically just any time any sort of line of inquiry or discussion would get started, he would just derail it by being a dick, but being a dick in a way that you're not really mad at, because he's clearly just doing bits all the time, but he's just a man surrounded in a cocoon of bits, and had a lot of actually very interesting stuff to say about music journalism and stuff that he's very sick of, and even stuff that we had to cut from the podcast about his label because from an unnamed listener of the podcast, and I know was like, hey guys, you should probably cut some of this stuff out because he might get in trouble. Andrew Katz might get in trouble. And we're like, okay, nothing racist. Don't assume that. Nothing racist. No, just stuff with a label. Just Andrew Katz being a wild boy, talking about things that most artists do not talk about, but Andrew Katz really doesn't care and doesn't think anyone should care, and kind of seems like Andrew Katz is the real life version of, in the Pinkerton oral history they did on Clickhole, there's this whole running bit in the oral history about every time the drummer talks, all he ever talks about is drumming. He's like, he only talks in limericks about drumming. He's like, drumming is what I like to do. I drum over here and I drum over, they all rhyme and they're all little things, but I can't do limericks off the top of my head. I'm not like a bard or anything, but, and I don't have them quoted off the top of my head, but basically Andrew Katz is just the real life version of the character of the drummer of Weezer from the Pinkerton oral history, in that he just likes to drum, and he only likes to drum, and he thinks all this other stuff is a bunch of bullshit.
He just loves to pound those skins, He just really loves it. But
every system that this podcast had in place to restore some sense of balance, he delivered a perfect spin kick to it, from the first second. He was like, oh, you're really gonna intro yourselves like that?
Oh yeah, that was the great thing, is that as we intro our intros are pretty weak and this podcast, and they're
literally improved this podcast, made this podcast with a force of will.
because of this mainly also. Because like we start the podcast and the intro is like not one of our better ones. It's a little slow or whatever, and he just absolutely dunks on us and is like, "This is how you guys intro the podcast? Like, is this how you start every week?" And he just like immediately grabbed the reins of the podcast and is like, "What are you doing, you children?" And it was really incredible to listen to. I was not on the podcast myself, and so watching it from a distance was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was great.
So yes, Andrew Katz, our bully of the year, and we will let him know once this episode goes up, as once again he will bully us and probably forget that he came on our podcast in the first place.
Probably. Matty, you almost forgot about it until I remembered, like, where's Andrew Katz going to go on this list?
Yes, I did low-key like I said, it's repressed memories. It's stuff that like it's just like it's like a traumatic event happened when you were a child, and you just put it in the back of the brain, and it'll only be unlocked and again by some specific word that will set it off. But anyways,
by the way, before we move on, I looked up the Clickhole oral history, which I, by the way, recommend to any listeners of this podcast if you haven't read the Clickhole oral histories, specifically the one on OK Computer that they did, and this one that they did on Pinkerton, which is called "America Fell in Love with Our Rancid Weezer Disaster," and throughout the entire like oral history, like it's quoting the different members of the band, and the drummer Patrick Wilson, every single one of his quotes in the oral history is a limerick about drums, such as, "When it comes to music, I think drums are the tops. If drums are a crime, then report me to the cops. My drums are very loud and my sticks are very long. I use my drums and my sticks on every song." And it's just that the whole way through, and that's really what the energy that Andrew Katz embodies to me.
Yes. To our okay, now for some more serious awards. And this one we'll go through somewhat quickly because we did sort of do this earlier on the year with our freshman list. So we'll be very brief about this. But of course, our breakout of the year, and we have 5 nominees, and our first nominee is "Let's Eat Grandma." Who wants to take "Let's Eat Grandma"? Jackson.
I'll do this one because I think I probably have it the highest on my album of the year list of any of you guys.
Yes.
Let's Eat Grandma. They are a pop duo from the UK. They're 19 years old, a fact that makes me very angry because this is their second album and it's very goddamn good. They have a mix of different kind of pop styles that remind me of like Lorde and Churches and Crystal Castles and stuff like that, but it's kind of this synth pop and indie pop and electronic indie-tronica stuff that is super duper colorful and psychedelic and textured, and the writing is incredible all over this album, like very good evocative lyrics, and I just really love this album. It's called "I'm All Ears" is the name of the album, and "Let's Eat Grandma" are really incredible because they just came out of nowhere. Like most people I think didn't hear their first album that came out when they were like 16, and that album I've revisited it after listening to "I'm All Ears," and it's pretty good, but like there's parts where they start rapping and stuff like that, and they make choices that that 16-year-old freak folk psychedelic pop artists would be making, which are not great choices occasionally. But they're now 19 and they've already matured a lot because this new album is unbelievably good. And I really, really love it. It's one of my favorite records of the year. It's in my top 10, I'm pretty sure. And it's got bangers for days, including Hot Pink, the single that Sophie produced that goes hard as shit. And It's Not Just Me, which is also produced by Sophie and is like a kind of glitzy Charlie XCX Churches type indie-tronic banger of a pop song. And the whole thing goes. Shout out to Let's Eat Grandma. They're really great, and they are very young, and they make me upset with how talented they are.
Yes. Our second nominee, JPEG Mafia, and I will hand this over to Dylan.
Okay.
Are you the correct person for this?
Yeah,
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the correct person. I mean, we already talked about Peggy earlier this year, so I don't know how much there is for us to really reiterate about him. Just a really fun, wild, experimental hip-hop outfit. really heavy on sampling and sound collage. Lyrically, it's got some of my favorite lyrical content from this year. And on top of that, some of the absolute best song titles of the year as well, including but not limited to My Thoughts on NeoGaf Dying and I Cannot Fucking Wait Until Morsey Dies.
I talk about this in my write-up I did for my end-of-year list, but it was really like a romantic comedy love at first sight moment when I saw there was an album out by an artist that contained a song called I Cannot Fucking Wait Until Morrissey Dies. I was like, I'm going to be into this. And I put it on, and I was really into it. And it's one of my favorite albums of the year and one of my new favorite artists. JPEG Mafia fucking rules. I really love the single he just put out with someone else that we're going to talk about on this list in a second. But JPEG Mafia has had an incredible year, a breakout year for sure, and is deserving as anyone of being on this list.
Absolutely.
Shout out.
Absolutely. And Peggy, if you're listening to this for whatever reason, please put out a repress of Veteran. Please, I'm begging you.
I have a copy, but put out a repress for Dylan, please. Also, come on the pod. I would love to have JPEG Mafia on the pod.
Like I said, again, we the chaotic evil scales which are already very high because Andrew Katz would just go even more.
Oh, that's true.
Because Andrew Katz does not know us very well, but JPEG Mafia will do his research and find every insecurity of everyone on the podcast and will go hard.
He's very online. That's the thing.
It'll be like the Pusha T.
Maybe the most online rapper we've ever had, like up there, I would say.
I mean, his name is JPEG Mafia. I mean, with the name alone, he has to be. But
in his Fantana review, he's like the most online person you would ever met. Like, he talks about doing nofap. He talks about like going in like just it's fucking great.
He's a really cool. I'm also really, really excited for whatever music he's made with Danny Brown, because that is going to just be the best combination. I'm really hoping that he has a feature on the new Danny Brown album. I'm pretty sure he does. Like, they've basically confirmed that they're working together in some capacity.
Yes. Yeah. Let's get to number 3, nominee number 3, Kenny Beats. And Jackson, I think.
I'll do this. Yeah, because you guys can do the next two. Kenny Beats. You've probably heard his name this year. If you haven't heard his name, you've definitely heard his ad lib, which is "Whoa, Kenny," and he is the hot new producer of 2018. I mean, there's other big hip hop producers that got really big this year, like Take Heath and stuff like that. But Kenny Beats became one of the most especially among hip hop writers and stuff, because Kenny Beats is basically, for those of you not familiar with him, he was one half of the EDM DJ duo Loud Pack, who I'm pretty sure I saw once in 2016. But yeah, he was basically part of this trap EDM DJ duo or whatever, and got didn't really end up wanting. That wasn't really what he set out to do in his career, but he getting into hip-hop production originally, he realized that he could make these EDM songs, and he made a bunch of money, and he was able to have a touring career, but got burnt out on that, and then stepped away from music for a year, and basically trained himself in the various disciples of mixing and mastering and producing and engineering and vocal engineering and effects and things, and turned himself into this Swiss Army knife of hip-hop production, who can basically handle every part of a track from top to bottom by himself, and is a really cool, when you read the articles about him and his creative process, he's such a collaborator, where he basically will work with anyone, but only as long as they're doing stuff that he thinks is good. He only wants to work with people that he thinks he can do great work with, and he's getting a lot of it right now. There was a run, there was just a month this year where there were 5 albums that came out that each had 6 or 7 Kenny beats on them. He put out almost an entire project with Vince Staples. He's produced basically all of Rico Nasty's 2018 output, who would be a great candidate for Breakout of the Year, by the way. Didn't get nominated, but shout out to Rico Nasty, who fucking rules. I love Rico Nasty so much. But Kenny Beats is just like a really talented. He did Rico Nasty's album, Vince Staples' album, the All Black EP that Zach nominated for EP of the Year, a couple of other really great. He did a collaboration with the JPEG Mafia called Puff Daddy. That's incredible. It's this like noisy banger. And the thing is that with each, he did a bunch of stuff on the '03 Greedo album that came out this year. Like, and across all these projects, like the sounds like couldn't be more different. Like he's really versatile in the different kinds of like hip hop sounds that he's doing, and it's just made. Also, he put out the collaborative album he did with Key 777, which has been on a lot of hip hop writers' end of year lists, along with all the other projects he's done. So definitely shouts out to Kenny Beats for having a real breakout year as one of the new hot hip hop producers. You'll hear Drake on a Kenny Beats song in the next 12 months. I would call that right now.
All right. Yes. Nominee number 4. I will take this one. I will let Britt take number 5, just so we can get that awkward exchange out of the way. Number 4 is Snail Mail, which again a very obvious candidate, and rightfully so, because Lush is one of my favorite albums of the year, and Lindsey Jordan is, even at, like I said, 19 years old, very similar to Let's See Grandma, where it's like, you are this young and you're making me cry like a little bitch, and no, I do not. I should not allow this, but I do, because Lindsey Jordan and what she does with Snail Mail is just, she makes just really good fucking music. There's a lot of similar artists that have come out this year that maybe I've not been as into, and I won't name them because I don't want to get into that. But there's something about Snail Mail, there's something about Lindsey Jordan that just hits in a really specific way. Like, for one, I think one thing that we don't talk about enough with Snail Mail, of course, obviously the lyrics and her voice, but she fucking shreds.
No, yeah, like seriously, that's the thing that I get really. I think there's like this tendency to put like female singer-songwriters in this box where like the only appeal that's really getting out of their music is some sort of emotional release in the lyricism or some sort of incredible songwriting. Like, they never really get credit for the music, and I think that while there are a couple of those like singer-songwritery albums that have come out that have been pretty like bland or one note or kind of sound the same, Snail Mail is not that. Like, the Snail Mail album has a distinct sound to it, and it has some really incredible guitar tones and awesome, like, she talked about that on this podcast she did with Stephen Hayden, is that like she got really into playing guitar, like wanting to like shred and do like 6 solos and stuff, more so than really like being a singer-songwriter, and she's just developed this incredible songwriting voice and lyrical style that fits the particular blend of indie rock and indie pop that she does on Lush, and it's a good-ass album, and I have it on my list and should be on your list. It's one of the big breakouts. I would just like to, before we move on, shout out the song Speaking Terms, because that song fucking rules, and it destroys me.
And Let's Find Out is also, God, fucking, ugh. Again, I love Snail Mail. Like I said, there's just, Lush is an album that, again, like I said, I was unbelievably hyped for it before it came out. At first I was like, oh, but then again, I just kept going back to it and just falling more and more in love with it, because there's just a lot going on. And it's like, if she is making this album now this young, like, in a couple of years when we get album number 2, like, how good is that going to be? Like, Jesus, especially when it's going to be coming through. Like, this is Snail. It's gonna be interesting to see her career, because right now this Lush was made, like, she had already, the breakout had already like somewhat happened, but this is the more like, the grand premiere, like the EP that came out in 2016. I can't remember the name of it right now. Apologies. Was just sort of like, it's like the the South by Southwest.
Habit. I think it was Habit.
Thank you, Habit. That's what it is. It's like your South by Southwest, or like your what's that one like early festival that's in like Utah or something? That happens in like January.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's the kind of EP that sort of comes out, and you're like very much, not first EP. It's all sort of like, oh, there could be something here for sure. Like songs like Thinning were really good songs, but like she wasn't really playing with like and even still, I think she still has a lot of room to go, because I've seen her live, and like some people have mentioned this, she's probably gonna have a better backing band in the next year or two, and then we're gonna get like the real like big Snail Mail album, the next one that gets like this giant Matador push and gets the kind of like Mitski level push we've seen this year. And I imagine on that album we'll see her really kind of expand on the sound and probably work with different producers and other bandmates and stuff. And so I'm really excited to see whatever Lindsay Jordan does next, because boy has she repeatedly she's roundhouse kicked me in the chest many times this year, and I would like to thank her for it.
Yeah, and also again, watch my low effort album review of it. Very accurate to. Again, I would say Lush is my Screaming in the Car album of 2018 for sure. But nominee number 5, Britt, take it away.
Nominee number 5 is Haley Hendrix, who is my personal album of the year, and oh boy, this album is 30 minutes long and 8 tracks, and all of them punch me in the face and make me cry. It's great. So this is her debut album. It took her like 3 tries to record this album. She's from Portland, and it's all very delicate and very pretty, and all of the lyrics speak to my heart in various ways. This album is very special to me, and I have a lot of feelings about it. But like lyrically, it's really funny sometimes, but sometimes it's like, I need to start a fucking garden right now, immediately, because otherwise I will absolutely lose my shit and die at the moment. I will fangirl about this for a while.
It's like that. Let's see. What's the drill tweet? Is like again. It's the 4th of July, and at the barbecue. Hang on, I'm gonna look it up before I completely get it wrong. Let's see. Oh, this whole thing smacks of gender. I holler as I overturn my uncle's barbecue grill and turn the 4th of July into the 4th of shit. I don't know how much that relates to Haley Hendrix, but there's an energy. There's a very similar energies going on.
Yes. That's about what I'm about to do right now. I will flip this whole thing smacks of Haley Hendrix, and I will ruin the whole podcast if you let me do this.
We'll discuss Haley a bit more as we kind of get on with our awards. So we'll try to keep it a little brief, because
there'll be another
spoilers.
Because
Spoilers.
people around these parts tend to like this album.
Yes. Again, and I must thank Dill for putting me onto Haley Hendrix in the first place.
Yes.
Once again,
yes.
Dill.
I was the conductor of this hype train.
You were
Thank
first.
You very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was first, and I don't get the credit that I deserve. This entire year.
We gave you credit now.
Yes, thank you.
I give you credit. I'm like, yeah. You were the one who put me on the album.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Also,
Anyways.
Matty, your low effort review. This one is my favorite you've done all year. Where you cannonball like dive at the camera. I died the first time I saw that.
Yeah, it's very good. It was that one, and I think the one you did for Death Grips, I think it made me laugh the most.
Which again got a copyright claim on Instagram, so again it only lives on Twitter. Anyways, hey, I'm currently doing the 2018 low effort album review. Today I reviewed Claro. I had to remember. I forgot because, like I said, Claro is like some kind of fever dream that I forget that we have had in 2018. Of like, oh yeah, she is a thing, kind of still. I don't know.
You know what else I forgot about too? Superorganism.
Yeah. Well, that
plant.
Well, yeah, that's because that album isn't as good as people were saying it was.
Anyways, let's get to the winner of Breakout of the Year, though, before we get into talks of industry plants and whatnot. And our winner for Breakout of the Year is JPEG Mafia.
Woo! Damn, Peggy.
Damn, Peggy. You think you know me. Which, again, one thing I forgot to mention during the JPEG Mafia stuff, the man's loves pro wrestling, and I appreciate a king.
Lots of wrestling.
Slam me harder, daddy, with JPEG Mafia.
Please, come on the pod. Talk Wrestle Kingdom with us. Talk Wrestle Kingdom with us, please. Indieheads
podcast members who, through like osmosis, I understand the wrestling references in JPEG Mafia's music because of you guys. And your incessant wrestling posting. So thank you.
What's that one tweet? It's like, "Welcome to Twitter. Here's your copy of the Communist Manifesto and a season pass to Monday Night Raw for some reason."
That's exactly it.
Johnny's good.
Okay. let's get to our next award. And again, we're coming soon to the close. But again, we have got some heavy hitters for these next 3 awards, and of course, as I mentioned, EP/Mixtape of the year. Mostly, it looks like, again, we're looking at all EPs from here. But this one, our first nominee is one that is kind of falls in that in between, and of course, through me alone, this is only on here basically just so I have an excuse to talk about this in our brief moment, because I don't think I actually got the chance to really go in depth about this at all on the podcast so far this year, surprisingly. And of course, I am talking about the new Dean Blunt EP mixtape, Soul on Fire, which is for me a very huge return to form for Dean Blunt. As for a couple of years he's been again, Baby Father has sort of been his main vehicle, and it's from an artistic perspective is really interesting stuff, but musically it's like, I'm just gonna keep throwing on, I'm just gonna throw on black metal or The Redeemer or The Narcissist Part 2 or Stone Island, or basically any of his run from basically again like 2012 to like 2014 2015. But alas, again, Soul on Fire, again, a return to form. And of course, it starts off with A$AP Rocky and possibly his only good feature/rapping of 2018, just going hype man mode about Dean Blunt, while Dean Blunt is just spouting off the most simplistic, like, braggadocious raps, just like super monotone, like just again, like I said, he literally says in the song, I ain't even gotta try that hard. And it's like, truly, Dean, you do not have to try that hard. And of course, me, the salivating fan, just eats this shit up like so much. As there's a ton of really great tracks on here. Again, it's only like 15 or 16 minutes long, so if you've never listened to Dean Blunt, I do like legitimately believe this is a really good like palette for what to expect, as it does kind of go through a lot of his different phases over the years. As there's stuff like Orange Soda and NBA, which are more like very short, kind of indie rock tinged tracks, and then you have stuff like A/X, which samples a brief like guitar riff on a Genesis song. It sounds beautiful, and it's also a cover of Gang of Four's Love Like Anthrax, where it basically turns this post-punk song, like this jangly, like anxiety-written post-punk song, into like a R&B, like smooth ballad, and it's wonderful. And then there's Beef, which samples a fucking Metallica song, like the softest part of a Metallica song. And it's just like a wonderful, wonderful EP. Jackson, do not say a word. You will not say a word about Dean Blunt to me. You will just go on to the next, the next nominee, because this is my chance. I've let you bully me. I've already let you bully me on this podcast. I will not allow it again. Otherwise, I will kick you from the call. And also, there's Petty Wop, which is a fucking beautiful, beautiful song that has great lyrics. And Jackson, you're again someone that you've just gotten into recently. That you have just gotten. I'm gonna pull out the receipt. Someone that you just got into recently. How to Dress Well, who put out an album this year that has not gotten much attention. Which you have been the only person I can recall that actually like listen to that album. I don't mean as anything.
I put Lily onto it too, and Lily has it on her album of the year list. She really liked it as well.
Hey. But anyways, again, there's a song called Petty Wop that just is like really beautiful, like lyrically, just like really beautiful. You know, I've got hell in myself and I don't got any feeling. I really can't help saying that enough. It's just like this really beautiful song with like really great string work, and just like, God, he's so Dean Blunt. Like one of my favorite things about him, and that what this EP shows off really well, is that he's just so good at sampling. He's able to take these samples from different songs and just completely make them like his own thing. And he's done that on Redeemer, he's done that on Black Metal. He's just one of my favorite artists of all time, maybe my favorite of all time, and I love him dearly, and I cannot wait for Black Metal 2. And yeah, that is my word. Did anyone else here listen to this EP?
Play some Dean Blunt records at the highest possible volume.
Jackson!
Let's ask. But my IQ is increasing so much.
Jackson, I go on this genuine spiel about how much I love this artist and how important his music has been to me, and over the years, and he's again, sort of been there with me through my mental evolution, how I've changed as a person and grown to be better, and then you just use a drill tweet to make fun of me for that. I'll allow it because I think it's funny. because
Yes.
you are somewhat right. Because again, there are records where I do that with Dean Blunt. Like that's basically me listening to BBF hosted by DJ Astro.
I mean,
That's
we've
literally
all
that's
been
literally
over the fact
me
that
listening to that album.
I'm exactly the same with Mark Kozilek, where I'm like, it sucks ass, but my IQ is increasing so much. Like we're all
Handshake
of us to
emoji.
some
Handshake
level
emoji. Handshake
are
emoji.
guilty of that on this podcast.
God. Okay. Anyways, the second EP, Britt. Going ahead.
Yes, it's Boy Genius with the Boy Genius EP. For those of you unfamiliar with Boy Genius, it is the ultimate sad girl combo of Lucy Dacus, Julian Baker, and Phoebe Bridgers, and they're all friends, and they're all like, "Hey, we're gonna form a super group, and we're gonna talk about all sorts of fun things and fun anxiety things, and we're gonna make it very pretty and have very fun harmonies and very nice sounding guitars sometimes." And I am the gaze in Matty's low effort album review. I will beat up Matty for not liking this. I will beat him with a baseball bat. You can quote me on that.
This EP, even though I don't listen to it as much as I enjoy some of the solo material from each of the artists contained with it, they do really work together as a trio, and I think it is really cool to see the three of them sort of collaborate in this way that I feel like has kind of lifted all of their profiles as artists, like collectively, and has really put people who were into Julian Baker onto Lucy Dacus, and people who were into Phoebe Bridgers onto Lucy Dacus, and vice versa, and all that. And I think this EP deserves to be on our list because it definitely was one of the biggest things that come out in indie this year, and people are really blown away by these three like super talented artists. And even if the Boy Genius songs like aren't half as good as the songs that were on the Julian Baker album last year, no shade, I still think that this project is very great and very nice to listen to, and definitely makes me sad, and definitely does everything I love about a lot of these artists' work. So I think it's a good thing to have on the list. Shouts out to Boy Genius.
Man, they really knew how to go for it. And I remember that Julian Baker went for like a double whammy at Pitchfork of like appointments into, what did she do?
Oh yeah, Julian Baker did messed up stuff at Pitchfork Festival. That's exactly what she did. 2
songs that I was like, this is criminal.
I've heard people who went to the Boy Genius shows say that they were like incredible because each one of them did basically like a 45 set, and then they did a set at the end as Boy Genius doing the entire EP, and that's just some wild shit to like be in a room and see that. And I think especially the people who are like most into this are definitely the people who got to go see it live.
I was openly sobbing at Julian Baker's set at Pitchfork.
Oh yeah, anyone who wasn't is a coward.
I was like walking around during Lucy Dacus' set, even though I do appreciate her. I forget what was going on then, but this really got me more onto Phoebe Bridgers. Really, that was kind of just how this EP worked out.
Yeah, that was. I really like Stranger in the Alps, even though I haven't come back to it a whole much. But embarrassing enough, my favorite Phoebe Bridgers thing is still the cover she did of a Mark Kozilek song. I Am Who I Am, folks. Like, there's no changing that. Also, by the way, what you're referring to is that Julian Baker opened her set and did Turn Out the Lights, Appointments, Sprained Ankle were her first 3 songs.
Yes. I couldn't remember exactly how it went, and I couldn't find the set list immediately. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a lazy soul.
Anyways, moving on.
Yes, Gavin, our third nominee. Gavin, what is our
Hello,
third nominee?
everyone. I'm going to try and keep this a little short. I'm going to treat this as if a sales pitch here because I'm not sure how many people listen to this EP. But it's Katie Ellen and their EP Still Life. If you're familiar with the band Chumped, which you should be, they put out probably the best pop punk record of all time called Teenage Retirement in the early 2010s. This is the front woman and the drummer of Chumped. They have a new band. It's new-ish. It started last year. They put out an album called Cowgirl Blues, which was pretty good, but they just put out an EP this year called Still Life, which is excellent. It's not pop punk. It's has a little bit more of an indie rock edge to it, but it's very fun and jangly, and sometimes not fun and not jangly. If you're looking for an intro, just listen to the song Lighthouse on this EP and you will be set. And that's all I have to say. It's very good.
Hell yeah, baby. I just saved that on my Spotify. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, you should.
And Jackson, since you're on the mic already, go on ahead.
I'll do the next one. I would also like to shout out, this isn't my EP of the year per se. This is one that was nominated by Josiah as his EP of the year, and it's also on very high up my list, so I'm going to talk about it because he's not on this pod. Shout out to Hatchie, Australian artist who, I mean, I'm not being like, oh, I heard of this first. I was pretty early on the Hatchie wave because when the first single from this EP came out last year, I happened to like read the little fader write-up on her single Shore, and I listened to it that day when it was still not on streaming services and just on SoundCloud, and I listened to that song like 40 times that day because the specific blend of shoegaze and pop music that Hatchie does is some extremely Cocteau Twins shit, and it is very, very, very good. She's an artist from Australia. This is her first EP, her debut album. I don't remember what label she's signed to, but just like this
double whammy.
Double whammy.
Who also put out the 2017 album of the year. Well, Melda, thanks, but again, I will put Jackson.
Oh, damn, true. Hatchie is joining the fine ranks of Lomelda, and she's putting out her debut album like sometime probably first half of next year, which is very exciting because she's really dope, and I'm excited that we get more Hatchie music next year. But her EP from this year called Sugar and Spice is very, very, very good. Lily, I believe, was the one who described the song Shore and Hatchie in general as like extremely end credits of a romantic movie music when you're running across a field to kiss your lover. Like it's completely, I mean, the title says it's like sweet and beautiful and dreamy, but the sort of shoegazy production that she uses completely like washes it out, and she has some very like unique like pop songwriting, especially on the song Shore, which basically has these two different choruses to it. Like the song has like two different vocal parts that sort of come in and out, and there's this one moment where like she's basically singing two choruses on top of each other, and it's such a like the way the song is structured, the way the two parts go back and forth is really brilliant, and I really loved this EP and want to shout out Hatchie for putting out that good ass Sugar and Spice EP.
Alrighty. And I guess our final nominee for EP of the year, Dill.
Yeah.
Going ahead.
So our final nomination for EP of the year is, of course, Aphex Twins' wonderful, wonderful comeback EP, Collapse. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this. It's Aphex Twin. You kind of know what to expect. Richard D. James goes absolutely berserk on this with
he snapped, sweetie.
He absolutely snaps. It's some of his most eclectic, densely layered stuff since probably Thyro, which is good because considering his last couple batches of EPs and side projects have kind of not been nearly as just brainchild sort of all off the wall fast-paced production. So this is a wonderful change of pace for him. I'm really looking forward, of course, to anything that he does in the future, but it's an absolutely fantastic EP. Sounds great on wax, of course. Yeah.
Shouts out.
And our winner for 2018 EP of the year should be obvious. Boy Genius. The gays have won. They have bullied this podcast into choosing it as the winner. Of course, bullying by just making us cry with the beautiful music, essentially. So, bullying.
Please make
Yeah,
more.
shout out to Boy Genius. One of I think the biggest sort of stories of indie rock was sort of their this ascent, this the second half of this year. And shout out to Lucy Dacus' album, which I also really like.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, and now on to our final category. I know we said we had about 2 or 3 left, but this is the final one. We gotta oh boy, again our sponsors are saying, hey, you gotta hurry up, and wrap it up. But hey, so
we gotta
do this time.
This ad and do all these ads for
Yes.
Sunbasket and MeUndies.
Blue Apron. Anyways, now to our final category of the night, and probably the most important category. The Song of the Year. Now, we did things differently this time. As usually, we sort of just list out. We kind of just go through, which, again, everyone kind of picks some songs, and we whittle it down to 5. This year, we actually did a proper Song of the Year list. Everyone on the podcast listed their 5 favorite songs of the year. We put a point system in place. We tallied up those votes, and now we have our top 5 list of our songs of the year. And coming in at number 5, and one one I'm very happy is on here, and one I'm surprised that is on here, is from Haley Hendrix, Joe.
This is single-handedly from me and Alex, and I'm very proud of this.
And did I have a Haley Hendrix song on I think I may have Worth It on my list.
No,
I
you
did?
didn't.
I
Oh,
mean, things were like pretty. I mean, it was all of us basically did our ballots 5 through 1 of what we thought were our songs of the year, and because songs are a little more diverse than albums, it's just sort of like there were only a couple of things that we really found consensus on, and unfortunately, like 3 of my songs like missed this cut by like 1 vote, but it's fine. Haley Hendrix, the song is good, and it deserves to be on here, so that's fine.
Yes, this one's my favorite of the bunch because it's very intimate and it's very sweet and it just talks about love and, it made me feel all cozy inside. So
Haley Hendrix is the 2018 album winner of album that makes you really want to get a nice cup of tea and like sit by a rainy window and just look out and be like, damn.
yes, this is the correct take. And
which was Julie Byrne in 2017, by the way, if you're keeping track at home.
Yes.
They said she played this live and it destroyed me. Like when I saw her live this year, this song like was the one that I went back to like a couple of times because I had the CD in my car and I went back to this one like a couple of times just because like it's really 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 emotional. It's this. Before Dill, did you have any thoughts before I kind of go on because I'm gonna kind of do a transition.
Joe's definitely one of the more intimate songs on the record for me. There are a couple of cuts that are like better than Joe, but it's a very like softly devastating song, and I really really appreciate it for that. And her vocal range on it is really just outstanding. And that's all I got.
Gavin, do you have any thoughts on Joe?
I think any Haley Hendrix song, basically off that album, is worthy of being on our Song of the Year list. This was not the one that was on my list, but I will not object at all to Joe being one of our songs of the year.
Yes, and like I said, also my favorite part of the song is the breakdown. The breakdown that happens about like a mid or so where the song ends, where just everything just has that crescendo and just. It's just this built-up tension just finally releases, and it's just so wonderful. And like Joe, it's this song about sort of a lost love. This is a person that was in your life, was a very important person in your life, and then all of a sudden, they're gone, and you're devastated. You don't really know what to do, and it's a lot to go through emotionally. I think a lot of us have been there before, and it's a very similar theme that's on our number 4 song of the year, Travis Scott featuring Drake, Sicko Mode.
God damn
it.
I mean, when Travis Scott rapped Stacey Dash, most of these girls ain't got a clue. Like, similar stuff was going on the Haley Hendrix album, I felt. Like, you could draw some parallels
the same
there.
energy.
Yeah, can I talk about this one? Because I think, the biggest defender. Most of the defenders, maybe. I need to speak up for my brethren, AJ Moser, who loves this song a lot and is correct that even AJ, the thing about AJ that's funny is that he hated Astroworld more than any of us by like a large margin, and then was also the biggest defender of Sicko Mode, which really I think speaks to the multitudes that Travis Scott contains.
Man, it's truly an enigma, and we can't contain it.
because like there was multiple songs on Astroworld that were just so like mid and boring, and he turned in so many like uninspiring vocal performances and weak verses and like half-baked songs. But then like every once in a while on that album, it just coalesces into things like Sicko Mode that are just like so thrilling and exciting, and you get mad at Travis Scott for not doing this all the time, because Sicko Mode is, I mean, the triple, it really is going to be like millennial Bohemian Rhapsody with like the triple beat switch, like 3 songs in one song that everyone likes, because like songs like this just generally don't work in the kind of pop music club setting because of the way that they just sort of randomly change multiple times inside of them. But Sicko Mode just kind of works. Like when you play it at like a party or a public gathering or something, the transitions all just sort of go seamlessly, and you just go from one part of it to the other, and all 3 parts of it are good, which is like hard to, at first I kind of wish that they were all their own song, but I've learned to appreciate that like they all kind of do add up to more than the sum of their parts. And the best part of the song, weirdly enough, is actually Travis Scott's rapping on it, which is really good. And every time he says, in the 305, these bitches treat me like I'm Uncle Luke, and then the don't stop, pop that pussy, the sample comes in, it's so good. And those drums, those like laser beam drums that he's got going on in there are just nuts. It's like some of the best productions on the whole album is the middle section with Travis on it. So yeah, the song is good. I moved it off of my list, actually, so I was surprised it still made it. I thought I was going to be necessary as part of the Sicko Mode coalition, but I actually moved it off my list to get another song here onto my list, which we're going to talk about in a second, which I'm very glad I made that decision. So even though Sicko Mode could have been higher, I'm glad it's on our list, because really I think it's going to be one of the songs from this year that's like remembered by the popular consciousness.
Yes.
Do you want to know a secret?
Go ahead.
What?
I fucking love Sicko Mode.
It's so good.
I annoy my girlfriend every day by just saying, "Give me the loot," and she hates me. She wants to kill me. She wants to strangle me to death. But it's worth it because the song is good, even though Drake is like not good this year. But this song is good, so that's all. I've said my piece.
Yes.
It is a very good song.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of very good songs, I'm going to do the next one, because this is actually my song of the year. I decided. I kind of waffled, but I didn't really have, like... I mean, I guess my song... I only voted for song of the year for singles. I think all of these are singles. My song of the year was any song, it'd be Grand Paradise, because oh baby, but we don't even need to get into that. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point later in this pod process. But my song of the year that was a single was Lifetime by Eve Tumor, which is, I think, like the 3rd single off of Safe in the Arms of Love, which is Eve Tumor's 2nd studio album released on Warp Records this year. Eve Tumor was a revelation for me this year, because I hadn't really listened to Serpent music really, and I had heard about Eve Tumor but really wasn't listening to a whole lot of ambient stuff before this year, so like kind of wasn't as much on my radar as it should have been. And boy, is this album like one of the most incredible achievements in like experimental like pop music of this decade. And like the singles especially Lifetime, which is the song that I picked here, is like, it's the way that it manages to combine the elements of like noise and drone and use those as like prominent production details in these songs that more resemble like pop songs or alternative rock songs. And Lifetime is just this it starts with this incredible fucking drum beat. Like the drums go so hard on this song, and then Eve Tumor basically crafts what is this perfect like alternative rock type ballad sort of thing, where they're singing about "and I miss my brothers," and it's so catchy, and it just builds the emotion so perfectly over its list. And it's one of my favorite songs that came out this year as a single. I thought it's really incredible and is the best the best song that Yves Tumor has made, because it really manages to fuse Yves Tumor's most experimental elements with like genuine pop sensibilities in a way that just works. And I think that's like the hardest thing to do in music, and generally most of the very best music is stuff that manages to be experimental and challenging while also managing to work in the context that music is supposed to make you feel a certain thing and make you want to move or dance or sing. And Lifetime is a song that does both of those things, and it's really good, and it's my favorite song on the album, and you should listen to it.
I very much agree. It's I mean, I said I'm on my own song of the year list. I had to go with Noi just because that was the first one. That was the first one I listened to.
That's true.
That's the one that just like blew me the fuck away. But
Noi is incredible.
Any song off of that album is good, and I co-sign it.
That's also true.
But Lifetime, yeah, the fucking drums, like God.
And all the way all the different vocal melodies are layered is so good. There's the she said, you don't have to. There's just so many like good little like details to the way they're singing, all the different little melodies and stuff, and it all just comes together in this beautiful way. And the instrumental is like has that kind of very subtle noisiness to it that like all of the singles on this have, where like even when it's not really dabbling in the experimental electronic stuff, you can still sort of it has a similar like tone to the production that makes it like blend in with those more experimental songs on the album.
Mm-hmm. God, again, this is lovely song, and we'll probably talk about the entire album potentially very soon on a podcast coming near you. But we will need to get to number 2 on our song of the year list, Death Heaven, Canary Yellow.
I was surprised this was this high, but shouts out to the goth metalheads, especially one Lily Markowski.
Willie, I think probably AJ had high on his list.
Yeah, this is 100% the Lily AJ Death Heaven coalition.
Did anyone else? Wait, did anyone?
Yeah, I was the one that pushed it over the top.
Okay, just making sure that we had somebody.
Yeah, because I was like, well, I was still trying to put my song of the year list together, and then I realized that Canary Yellow was my most listened, most scrobbled song on Last FM this year, and I was like, oh, okay, I might as well just throw it on there. And as I was organizing it, I realized that it fucking goes. I think when this dropped, I ran to Lily, and I was like, this is probably Death Heaven's best song since Dreamhouse. Which is a lot to live up to, because that song just completely it's just so quintessential of the whole black gaze subgenre that they originally were part of. But Canary Yellow, just the progression of the song is so beautiful, from this very nice, hazy dream pop instrumental intro straight into having huge riffs with rock and roll guitars and transitions into later this is like hardcore punk like alternative rock chanting at the end, which just blows my mind. And especially during late summer, I had a fucking blast just cranking this up. So shout out to Death Heaven for putting out one of my favorite albums of the year, and also one of my favorite songs of like the past couple of years.
Ba-boom. Again, our obligatory metal mention of this podcast.
You can't see it right now, but I'm doing double devil horns right now. Just going. Yeah. I'm sticking my tongue out. I'm wearing black eyeliner. I'm going crazy.
Yeah, headbanging silently in my room.
And keep those devil horns up, one Jackson Kadiga, as we are now on to our song of the year, which won by a landslide, by 22 points.
Like, there was clearly no, even though this isn't the song I would have picked from this album or this artist or a song I enjoy as much as other people, it's like this song is very undeniable in terms of the impact it had on indie music in 2018. It was the defining song of indie music this year, and I'm glad that the podcast voting bore this out. It's nobody. Nobody,
by Mitski.
Nobody.
This was number one on my list. And one that was not hard to figure out. Usually my song of the year, like maybe
you listened to this song for like a month. Like there was like a month you just listened to Nobody like all the time.
He kids, but he's not wrong. He's like this. It's literally like this has been the year that I've been, for the most part, up until this year, was very good when it came to new singles. I made sure to keep things. If I really liked it, again, I try to keep it to a minimum. Maybe the hardest I would go was maybe about like 15 to 20 listens. But again, I still was like all right, gotta enjoy the album experience, just gotta keep it too low. When Nobody came out, I listened to it 25 times in the week. And then since then, it's probably, I think at this point, probably around 60 listens. I'm going to go check my Last FM real quick. But I am very sure that it's got to be over 60, maybe into 70 at this point. And
before we get into the rest of the song, let me just say that this song has inspired countless stick and poke tattoos among college campuses across the nation.
Yes.
I don't think you're legally allowed to have a college radio show in the year of 2018 if you don't play Nobody like 3 times in it. Like the FCC passed a new law.
Yeah, I think I played it at least twice that I can think of. But I didn't have a radio show for the first half of the year. But
yeah, I play Nobody a lot. My Scrabble count on Last FM is at 58 for Nobody by Mitski.
That's beefy.
It's not my number one. My number one is Dean Blunt NBA, but that track is like less than a minute long, and I think, like I said, I obsessively listened to that EP when it came out. But anyways, Mitski Nobody, right for the EP of the year. And let's just, like I said, just getting into it. Obviously, like for one, it's just a massive earworm. Like it is so catchy. Just every little vocal line and melody just gets stuck in your head, and it's like. And you don't want it to leave. It's just like I'm so happy this is in my head, And there's that, and the instrumental is great. Again, it's sort of when she said for this album, her going back to more like piano-based songwriting. This is the best possible way for that, where it's got that just great piano work. The guitar, a little like a disco tinge guitar, is so good. And oh god, her vocals sound amazing. God, she's such a good vocalist. And the groove and the way the song just has this like in some ways unpredictable flow, and that that a lot of songs of Be the Cold might have, where they're very traditional, but it's more of it gets in and it gets out. Like I think the chorus only plays in the song like twice, but even then it just sort of goes from verse one is very different from verse 2, and then verse 2 is very different from the bridge, and then both the choruses are also very different from one another, where the variations and then like if you have not, I think we discussed it on the last podcast, maybe it might have just come out when we did that podcast, but there's a video that she did with SiriusXM where she performed this a cappella, and there's also the Genius Explain video too, but the SiriusXM a cappella video like really shows you like how impressive this song is, that there's so many different things. Like Lily is probably way smarter and knows way more musical theory stuff. I know she discussed it in the podcast chat of just like she is doing stuff with her vocals that make no sense. Like
it is nuts. Yeah,
it's completely nuts.
Especially the chorus with all the nobodies.
And also
I really like this song. I do have to express this objectively bad opinion I wish my brain didn't have. This isn't my favorite song because it has a problem that I identify as like similar to my problem with Greenlight by Lorde, where the core of the actual song I really like. Like I love the chorus, and I like a lot of the more disco-y stuff it gets into toward the end. I find the sort of like intro section of the song like not great and kind of awkward, and makes me not want to listen to the rest of the song. But then when I listen through that part, I really love the rest of it. And so like I tend to enjoy Nobody more when I just like put the album on than when I'm like listening to it as a single experience. And it's in general, like my thing with Mitski all this sort of Listmas season is that I just didn't like get into Be the Cowboy as much as her other work. And like like it's frustrating because I don't want to be one of those people that's like seems like they're hating on Mitski because they're like a misogynist loser, because Mitski's fucking incredible and I love both of the other Mitski albums a lot. It just like in a few like very small ways the Mitski album wasn't wasn't as much my favorite as some of the others, but I do agree that like Nobody is an incredible, like it's a really bold like step compared, like when you think like we've sort of adjusted to this vision of what Mitski is now, but like when Nobody came out, like thinking about like, oh, this is the person that made Puberty 2 and they can do this, it's like really incredible, and I totally get why the song had such a huge like following this year.
It's strange that you bring up the problem that you have with the intro, because I really love the intro and the just building of it, but I feel like the chorus of just the repeating pattern of Nobody, especially towards the later half of the song, just becomes just a bit too much, just drags on a bit too long.
I mean, I'm gonna disagree, because again, 58 listens, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it drags on because I mean that's sort of. I mean, I hate to be like that's the point, but like that's the point because it goes into the depravity, you know, of like
I understand what it's doing and I respect the intention behind it. I just have to say that, you know, while I love the chorus, you know, the constant back and, you know, repetition of it just drags on a little too long for my taste.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, the opening line of, you know, my God, I'm so lonely. I do one of those, like, Casey Frey, like, anytime I hear that. One of his grunts. Which, by the way, Casey Frey, who, someone that, again, I wish that, again, got discussed in the podcast at some point in 2018, because he would be, like, up there on my meme. Casey Frey is so good. He's so good to me. He's so good at me. But anyways, God, Nobody. I love this song. Like I said, the ending where just sort of, again, her vocals start fading out, and then there's the weird vocal effects where it's just sort of like, it's like, you know, it's the program shutting down. It's just sort of, again, her sort of falling into self-defeat and, you know, sort of in an interesting way. Sort of, obviously, the album is, for the most part, there's, like, not really much mentions of, like, technology and whatnot, but I do think it's, like, interesting how sort of using, like, more technological sort of sounds to kind of represent that loneliness and that the fact that, like, you know, there's nobody. And also the video for the song is fucking amazing. Like, it's a really great video too, just a lot of really great visuals there. And then the ending where it sort of like cuts to her, where again the, you know, it reveals like, oh hey, this is a set, and then she sits in the, you know, the director's chair, and it's just like it's so good. It's so good. I love this song. I love this song so much. Fuck.
And it's our song of the year, folks.
It's a good song, and it's all good music, kids, except for the parts where we said it wasn't good music.
Well, it is good music. I do like this song. It's just not like I really wanted to lead the coalition of actually Two Slow Dancers is the masterpiece single that she dropped this year, and it should get the respect. And I'm mad it wasn't on this list, but that's also because I moved it from my top spot, so I can't be mad about that.
It's your own fault. It's your own fault.
But also, I wanted our list to have more diversity. It can just be Mitski singles. But shout out to Two Slow Dancers, a song that is so emotionally affecting that often when I put it on, like, I don't even have to get to the lyrics. Like, just the memory of what's about to come already has me, like, on the verge of tears, so that by the point she just, like, starts singing the first line, it's like, dunzo. Like, oh man, that song ruins me. Shout out to Mitski.
Yes. So yeah, that will be the end of our podcast. That is part 1 of the Podcast Awards. Come back in a couple of days as we begin part 1 of our Album of the Year list, as we go over albums number 10 through 6. So again, getting into the first 5 of our top 10 albums of 2018. As again, this has been, I will say, of the list that we've done in the past years, it is possibly our most interesting list. I will say there's a lot of the placement. There's albums that you have maybe seen other in the Album of the Year list, but just the placement of everything is really, really intriguing. And I'm very, very excited for you guys to listen to the episodes when they drop and when we record them, as I'm very excited.
Not listening is a big mistake. That sounded better in my head.
When Gavin, the king of posting the most inane, dumbass bullshit on Twitter, is like, "Oh God, you know that you've made a guffaw."
Go back to bullying that.
Okay. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We will see you all on the next one. Goodbye. We love you. Mwah.
Rest in peace, Young King Dave.
Rest in peace, Young King Dave. Rest in peace.